Hey folks, quick word for you. It's been brought to my attention that somebody has been impersonating me via emails. They've been going around asking for game keys in my name and even using my channel URL and social media account links. This is not me, and I want to inform all of you about this. If you receive these emails, please contact me and also report the user. Getting impersonated. Does this mean I'm famous now? Who knows. Stay safe, and now, on to the video. If this is your first time watching one of my videos, then maybe you don't quite understand the magnitude of my love for The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess, and that's okay, because I will make it very clear in today's video. But if you have watched a few or are a regular viewer, then you'll definitely know my obsessive love for this game. It is not just my favourite Zelda game, but also my favourite video game. To avoid gushing about that for possibly hours, let's move right onto the topic in my mind. A Twilight Princess sequel. This was at one point planned to happen, but never came to be. Instead, we got the spin-off Link's Crossbow Training, which in my opinion is a decent wee game, but not a sequel in any sense. So what happened to the actual sequel? Funny enough, despite being my all-time favourite game, I've never really looked into the cancelled sequel all that much. I know of it, and even know a fellow creator by the name of Nehru made a video on it, but I only recently checked it out in anticipation for making this video. Great video, by the way. Check it and Nehru out if you haven't already. This cancelled game, combined with the fact that I very often receive comments saying Twilight Princess needs or deserves a sequel on my Twilight Princess videos, got me thinking and more interested in the topic than before. Does the game really need a sequel? As my favourite game of all time, of course I'd kill for more of it, but logically thinking, would it actually be a good thing for Twilight Princess? I mean, the game kind of ended at a really good point. Could this story have been continued? Or should a slightly different ending have continued the game into a sequel? Well, today I will be providing my take on all of this and provide a definitive answer on whether or not this game needed or potentially still needs a sequel. Be sure to go and grab yourself a snack or drink and send them in to get featured right here, and let's get into it. Okay, so I'm going to split this video into two sections. Firstly, briefly going over what actually happened to the planned sequel, and then secondly, going over how much we supposedly needed a sequel, how it could have worked, and could it have even worked. Starting with what happened to the sequel. I'll be keeping this section brief as mentioned, and I'll be sourcing a lot of facts from Nehru's video, which I also previously mentioned. For a more in-depth insight to what happened, please go check that video out afterwards. It's brilliant and I highly recommend Nehru as an entertaining Zelda content creator. After Twilight Princess was released to the world, it was a fairly large success. Shigeru Miyamoto began thinking about their next Zelda title. He wanted a sequel to Twilight Princess. Kind of. He more so wanted a side story, something simple, but there was a catch. This simple side story had to include the usage of the Wii Zapper, a fun, cute little attachment to mimic a zapper gun. This, however, created conflict within the Zelda team. The team had been planning something much bigger in terms of ideas, and had the desire to make a full-blown side story sequel, something which wouldn't really need the zapper, you know, because that kind of takes away from being a Zelda game. But Miyamoto stuck by his want for a simple game, and who's to argue with the genius mind of Miyamoto? Well, the team did push and push to make this sequel, but Miyamoto wasn't having it, essentially killing the development team's ideas. On top of this, Miyamoto had previously stated his desire to try a first-person perspective game, something that the Wii Zapper would provide. He wanted to show how fun but simple a Zelda game could, but was this idea perhaps outdated for the time and progression of Zelda? That's a debate in itself. Basically, over time, a lot of back and forth, this sequel came to feel more like a demo for the Zapper in the eyes of the Zelda team, more or less being forced into Miyamoto's ideas of plain and simple, no longer really making it a Zelda game. Thinking about it, maybe it's good it went this way, as if the dev team did get their wish of making a proper sequel, but still had to use the Zapper, the entire legacy of Twilight Princess could have been ruined. A Zapper-based controls would ruin a proper Zelda game. Anyway, Miyamoto took a lot of convincing for basically everything. The once intended to be sequel turned into the spin-off title Link's Crossbow Training, the cute little crossbow blaster game set in Twilight Princess's Hyrule. It's cool, but not a sequel. It has some cool parts, such as the Star-Lord battle, which, fun fact, Miyamoto originally didn't even want bosses in this game. To keep it simple, this game almost didn't have this. Long story short, the Zelda team had ideas and wanted to make a proper side story sequel to the game, but Miyamoto's mind was set on the Zapper, essentially cancelling out it turning into a sequel at all. It began as the idea of a sequel like Majora's Mask to Ocarina of Time, but ended in not even having the words The Legend of Zelda in it. So that's a short take on what happened, but now for the juicy, interesting questions that I'm here to ask and answer. Does pineapple belong on pizza? No. Yes. No, yet. Oh, that's not the question. So the question at hand is, does Twilight Princess need a sequel? Well, more did it need a sequel, as honestly I think the chances of it now receiving one is long gone. That ship has sailed. Any other Zelda sequel was released close to each other, even the indirect ones like Ocarina of Time to the Wind Waker. That, as well as the current direction of the series, the odds are against.
Never tell me the odds.
There are two main things to look at here. How could it have happened? In terms of where would the story go from where it left off? And what would the story actually be? You know, if the team got their wish to create this sequel. The first thing to take in here is that it was always envisioned to be a sort of side story from my understanding. My interpretation is that Miyamoto was always going for a side story, but the devs maybe wanted a bit more. If it came to be, I think it would have been made into a side story or story extension kind of deal, to go with Miyamoto's wishes, but the devs would get their wish with making some actual Zelda content, not a spin-off. Who knows, it probably would have turned into an actual sequel, just with a lot of Miyamoto's wishes within it. So where would the story have gone from the ending we got? If you don't know how the game ended, to put it briefly, Link kills Ganondorf after a grueling journey across Hyrule and the Twilight Realm, repairing a shadowy relic and also repairing the Mirror of Twilight, the one and only portal to the Twilight Realm. Following the demise of Ganondorf, we see Link, Zelda and Midna at the Mirror of Twilight, and in emotional fashion, Midna returns to her home of the Twilight Realm, but she pulls a sneaky one and shatters the mirror right before leaving, cutting ties between Hyrule and the Twilight Realm. That's where the story ends. So what now? They can't go into the Twilight Realm to explore that further. This is a big issue. The idea of a sequel came after this, so it's not like they could have altered this ending to cater to a sequel. So there are two routes basically. Either we seemingly just discover a new way into the realm after being told with emphasis that this mirror was the only way, and it's now destroyed, or the more realistic option, the story continues within this world. So let's just say Link and Zelda return to the castle. Oh, wait. Ganondorf destroyed it during the final battles. There we go, we can start from there. Hyrule Castle and possibly the town is being repaired. That's a nice little story point to kick off. Not something to be involved in, but a good place to kick off. So we have our beginning. What about the actual contents of the story? Well, my first thought would be to come up with some ideas for exploring beyond Hyrule, maybe a whole new area, but remember, this was meant to be a sort of side story to the game, so perhaps more in the sense of exploring the outer areas of Hyrule, deeper into the Snow Peak region, more caves in the Gerudo Desert, maybe further north of Zora River. A side story in my eyes would probably be some kind of glorified side quest within the existing map, at least beginning there. Maybe something involving the Resistance would be cool. The Resistance are a group of Hylian vigilantes. They are pretty prominent in the story. They work to restore peace to Hyrule and play a key role in helping Link get from dungeon to dungeon in order to retrieve the mirror shards. They all help us to a different region of Hyrule. For example, Ashe leads us to the Snow Peak region and helps us out there, and Shad helps us get to the skies. Maybe each of them come to learn that there are new rising issues regarding monsters, or some sort of lingering evil that we must go and deal with. Maybe this time, they'll come with us to each region as a sort of companion, which would make sense in most cases. Ashe knows Snow Peak well, Shad has a great knowledge of the sky, and I'm sure the devs could fill the gaps with the others. The only issue I'm foreseeing with this is that would a sequel work just loading up the exact same game world? My mind wants to tell me no, but at the same time this looks to be what's happening with the sequel to Breath of the Wild. The same world, but with more. So maybe it would work. That's what we're going with anyway. So the basis of this story is that a few outer evils rise, and the Resistance we have already worked with once to save Hyrule help us again to prevent more downfall whilst the kingdom is repaired. But it feels like it's missing something. A boss, an evil, something in the way. Despite only being a side story sequel, there has to be some sort of boss. Even the spin-off game got one. So what or who would it be? It can't be Xant or Ganondorf, we know that. It would surely have to be a new boss. Unless this rematch against Stallard was used. I don't know, to be honest. I think they'd struggle a little here. Honestly, if the sequel was helping out the Resistance with a new quest line for each of them and a little bit of work around Hyrule, with some sort of big bad boss within, Would that be worthwhile? Well, as a Twilight Princess mega fan, I'm gonna say yes, but I feel many will disagree, and that's okay. Personally, I'd take anything more Twilight Princess, but putting my feelings towards the game aside, I don't really feel like this is necessary. Not just the idea I came up with, but any sort of sequel. Unless we're venturing deeper into the Twilight realm, which we know is literally impossible now, then I think anything further than what we got is unnecessary, and an example of when to leave something where it finished. I think a sequel to this game would almost tarnish the legacy of Twilight Princess. It left off in such a perfect place, and a sequel that is more or less a bit of a dragged on extension story wouldn't leave where the first game ended as amazing and emotionally captivating as it was. Did we need a sequel? No, not at all. Do we want a sequel? Or do I want a sequel? No, honestly no. Part of what makes Twilight Princess my all-time favourite video game is the story, including the emotional ending. A sequel would ruin that, change that, just not make it the same. I just think that the story ended at a perfect place to end. That, and that there isn't too much to work with unless they were to go for a full-blown new adventure. Not the sort of side story that was suggested. A lot of this is up to your own interpretation, of course, and this is just how I perceive it. You might see it differently, and that's okay. I'd love to have more Twilight Princess content in my life, but the game we got ended perfectly, and at this moment in time, I can't see any way to justify a sequel. The only real way I could see this ever working in a proper way, without damaging Twilight Princess as we know it, is getting to explore the Twilight realm further, which again, would mean we need to find a new way in, and as we know, there is apparently no other way in. I think this game ended and was meant to end, leaving a perfect story perfect. Thanks a ton for watching. I really hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, be sure to drop a like and consider subscribing for more fabulous Zelda content. Do you think Twilight Princess needed and or deserved a sequel? For me personally, no. The game ended at a perfect point to wrap up the story. Maybe a sequel of sorts in the far future, but directly, no, not for me. Don't ruin what was perfected. Regardless, leave a comment below with your thoughts. I'll be replying to as many as possible. Look out for my replies. Oh, by the way, if you liked some of the lo-fi, I don't know how you say it, music you heard earlier in this video, that's from the channel Tingles Jingles. They make some awesome beats from Zelda to Pokemon and much more, so check them out. As always, a huge special thank you goes out to all of my supporters across Patreon and YouTube, with a special mention to new supporter 2 Shoes McGee. Brilliant name, I love it. Thanks a lot. If you'd like to join them and get yourself a shout out upon joining and your name at the end of every video, then consider supporting. Again, thanks for watching, and until the next time, I've been Hyrule.